Spooky isn't a season, it's a state of mind. So, no matter whether it's February or October or the very depths of a blazing hot July, there's still long, dark nights when the best thing to do is turn off all the lights, put on those noise-cancelling headphones and sit down with a game that'll give you nightmares for the next month or so. Reading the news is just as likely to give you nightmares, to be honest, but at least with horror games, you know they're not real. Let's agree not to think too hard about horror games that are loosely based on true stories. Anyway, I've rounded up the best upcoming horror games you should keep an eye out for, because let's face it, we need something to look forward to these days, and horror games are bone-chilling, but God, screaming out loud makes me feel alive again. Okay, so here we go. Here's 9 upcoming horror games you should have on your radar, Alien Isolation style. SCORN is a Geiger-inspired fleshy body horror that's gonna make you squeal and squirm and never look at your skin in quite the same way ever again. I mean, just look at it. The structure of the game itself is just as eerie as the setting, as it's a non-linear game, meaning you explore the surroundings in whichever order you want, which itself is sure to throw off anyone who's used to the comforting planning of a linear storyline. Oh, plus there's 0 cutscenes, meaning you're not going to get a single break from SCORN's fetid clutches. Unlike the other titles on this list, SCORN has puzzles as well as a maze-like structure, making me think it's not going to be a game full of jump scares. Or a game with any jump scares, come to think of it. Instead, from the gameplay we've seen so far, SCORN looks like it takes its time getting under your skin, with each location drawing out the unsettling vibe with torturous patience. This is the kind of horror that'll keep you looking over your shoulder and second-guessing the origins of odd sounds coming from shadowy corners as you uncover the stories nestled inside SCORN's fleshy folds. Ugh, I cannot believe those words just came out of my mouth. I'm gonna go wash it out with soap and watch some puppy videos. Be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what's going on with Dying Light 2 at the moment. Techland have announced yet another delay to the parkour horror title, so it's allegedly coming out sometime in 2020 now. Luckily, we've got a substantial look at what the gameplay is going to be like, which is, yup, parkour horror as you flee from, what else? Zombies. Sorry, I mean infected. Gotta get your undead terminology right if you want to be taken seriously these days. Just like Dying Light, during the daytime, you're not at too much risk, although there are humans who aren't too fussed about spreading your innards on the ground, if it means they get to grab all your stuff. Siding with certain factions changes the world around you in Dying Light 2, as your support can help groups to flourish, whereas abandoning others kills their influence across the city. But enough about daytime. It's the nighttime you really want to worry about, because that's when the infected come out to play. And by play, I mean hunt. You'll have to survive for as long as possible as you explore the city at night, as having the infected roam the streets isn't the best case scenario, but it does mean you can delve into their empty-ish hideouts to find the secrets waiting in the dark. Dying Light 2 also has co-op, which means even more frantic scrambling as you and your pal try to escape the infected together. You know what they say, those who parkour together might get caught by infected and be eaten alive together. Not particularly catchy, but hey, I don't make the rules. Bet you can't guess what Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is about. Okay, sass aside, Bloodlines 2 is more an RPG horror than a jump scare I'm not gonna sleep tonight kind of horror, but boy is it still bloody. Coming out in 2021, you play a newly turned vampire in Seattle trying to get to grips with the world they've been hurled into. The good news is that because you don't start off with any allegiances, you can choose what kind of vampire you want to be. Are you the kind who uses charm and bewitching magic to ensnare their victims? Or are you an advocate of the mortal blood is for throats and not for veins school of thought? In Bloodlines 2, you can indulge in your vampire fantasy, not the Twilight kind, with plenty of gore to spare, and its RPG focus means that it's ideal for even the most scared of scaredy cats. Resident Evil Village is the follow-up to Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and it's traded the humid swamps of Louisiana for the chill, frigid climate of somewhere in Europe, perhaps? Although we don't know the specific location, occultism and unnerving woods clearly aren't enough to make the whole thing shudder-inducing. So there are also werewolves thrown in for good measure, and a particularly hostile-looking Chris Redfield, who might be working for Umbrella? Anyway, things have gone from bad to worse for Ethan as Chris is hunting him through the snow for some unknown reason. We don't know a ton about Resident Evil Village right now, but I'd definitely put it on your spooky calendars if you're a fan of horror, because, well, that's what Resident Evil does best. Now, this is kind of cheating, as Visage has actually come out really recently, but I really like it, so I wanted to include it anyway. It's been in early access for a while, and now you can play the entire thing from beginning to end, and possibly regret doing so when you're lying awake at night looking at the shadows and hoping they don't end up eating you, because Visage is weird. In fact, it might remind you of PT. Visage is actually like PT in so many ways that Aoife made a video about it. You explore a house eerily devoid of the living, but it's at full occupancy when it comes to the not living. Ghosts have made this house their home after they all died under mysterious circumstances in the house and are unable to leave. Each ghost has its own chapter named after them, and although you don't know why you're in the house to begin with, it's your duty to figure out what these ghosts want and how you can give them peace. Like PT, Visage ramps up the tension ever so slowly, with TVs suddenly turning on or the radio blaring out noise by its lonesome, as unsettling creaks and supposedly harmless noises rustle in the background. I've played a lot of Visage and absolutely adore it, because it's so hard to predict what's coming next. You could open a door to a bedroom and find a clue about the trauma one ghost went through, but open the door to a bathroom and you're suddenly in a nightmare dimension. So, if you miss PT, Visage is for you. Little Nightmares 2 may look like it's come out of a rather twisted children's book, but do not underestimate Tarsier Studios' ability to well and truly creep you out with its haunting enemy designs and the oppressive atmosphere. Little Nightmares 2 features 6 from the first game, along with new character Mono, who you'll be playing as, with 6 guiding him to the ominous Black Tower. Gluttony and greed were major themes of Little Nightmares. Seriously, you try to forget the sight of those corpulent rich folk. And rather than moving on to another sin, Little Nightmares 2 looks like it's tackling classic fears like school, mannequins, and our servitude to screens. Yeah, try not to think about the fact that you're playing the game on a screen when it comes to that last one. It's probably fine. Little Nightmares has its jump scares, but where it shines as a horror game is the haunting environments you puzzle your way through, where objects like stray shoes, oddly shaped furniture, and remnants of something grotesque you'd rather not think too much about are waiting in the shadows. Little Nightmares 2 is sure to have the same disturbing attention to detail, and Ian's actually already made a ton of videos about it for the channel, so if you're interested, you should definitely check them out in the broad light of day. I'll just bid my nice, small dreams goodbye right now and start preparing myself for some little nightmares. It's bad enough being hunted by monsters or haunted by ghosts in our own realm. So just imagine having them dog your every footstep when you're in the psychic/supernatural realm too. Now that's a bad day. And that's a pretty concise summary of The Medium, a game which puts you in the mind of Marianne, who travels into the spirit realm to solve puzzles and figure out what happened to the mysterious figures in her visions. No one simple truth exists in the game, which sounds to me like you'll be exploring different perspectives on one event. So far, we don't know what the main story is or who you're running from in the alternate dimension, but it's giving me bad vibes. Reliable horror tropes like abandoned buildings and cracked porcelain masks are your lot in the medium, so if you're a fan of those reliable ways to creep you the hell out, the medium is just the game for you. I do not like this, not one bit. Multiplayer Outlast. Yup, that's the thing. The Outlast Trials has you and other players trying to survive the, quote, twisted, sadistic and bizarre, unquote, experiments of the Murkoff Corporation during the events of the Cold War. In the halls of whatever hellish facility they put you in, you'll be chased by things like this. And apart from that, there's no indication of what other horrors await. Considering the events of Outlast and Outlast 2 had you hiding away from big bads in cornfields or in lockers, the Outlast Trials are almost definitely going to have you and your fellow test subjects lurking in the shadows or in cupboards to avoid God knows what abominations in the facility. The Murkoff Corporation was the entity behind the events of Outlast 1 and 2, but the Outlast Trials is a prequel to those games, so we'll get to see the beginnings of the Murkoff Corporation's experiments. Oh goody. A chance to be part of Outlast history. Who could pass that up? Me. I can pass that up quite happily, thanks. I know Phasmophobia is playable now, but it's still in early access, so there's a while to go before it's released in full. Taking over Twitch and YouTube with its genuinely innovative approach to horror, which I'll talk about in a bit, Phasmophobia isn't only a horrifying single-player experience, play it on your own if you have the guts, but one that still manages to be terrifying in multiplayer. Multiplayer horror is hard to get right, because it's so easy for any tension to evaporate as soon as you know someone is there to share the fear with you. Mind you, seeing them die in front of you will ramp that fear factor all the way back up, and that is something that happens in Phasmophobia if you're not careful. And if you're like me, that happens fairly regularly. In Phasmophobia, you and your pals are ghost hunters trying to diagnose the supernatural entity haunting a building and working for next to nothing. While your ghost hunting colleagues remain alive, it's up to you to use crucifixes, to spirit books, to freezing breath, to narrow down your list of otherworldly, or underworldly, suspects and then to put it mildly, piss off the spirit in question, or Oni, or Wraith, or Banshee, or what have you, to get firm evidence of what you're dealing with. Settle on the right type of ghost, take pictures of any evidence, including dead colleagues for the life insurance, yep, seriously, and get paid a miserable amount to then buy better equipment for your next ghost hunting trip. Level up, and instead of houses, you'll be investigating abandoned schools and rundown asylums and mourn your still miserable level of life insurance. Such is the life of a ghost hunter. And that's 9 upcoming horror games you should keep an eye on. Maybe the one in that jar on your desk. If you enjoyed the video, thanks very much, and also don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Eurogamer for lots more videos about horror games, because we tend to like them quite a lot over here. Plus, we have a new video out every single day, so there's always something to watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go and turn on all the lights in my flat and look at some puppy pictures because I am seriously spooked. See you next time.